Welcome to Small Business Insider Live. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Christy Arslan, and I am the Entrepreneur in Residence at the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, otherwise known as SBE Council. SBE Council is an organization specifically for people like you, business owners and entrepreneurs, and we educate, advocate, and do quite a bit of research on small business and small business policy. Our job is to be your champion here in Washington, D.C. and on Capitol Hill so policymakers can make the best laws and legislation and regulations that help create a positive climate for entrepreneurs. So definitely take a look at sbecouncil.org to learn more about our organization. You are joining Small Business Insider Live, which is our weekly live stream program where we talk about topics specifically for small business. We are very excited today to have Susan Solovic joining us. Susan is and a "the" with a capital T-H-E, small business expert. She is a woman of many talents. She is an author, a best-selling author. She is a media personality. She is a sought-after keynote speaker, attorney, and she's been a longtime champion of small business owners. So Susan, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Christy. It's my pleasure, and I really appreciate the work the SBE Council does.
Well, we are here today because this month is actually Women's History Month, and so we wanted to, look at women and particularly women in business. One of the key areas of growth for women is the large numbers in which they are starting businesses. In fact, I have a statistic here which I'll read for everybody. According to the National Women's Business Council, there are currently over 9.9 million women business owners in the United States. And that's an increase of over 27% from 2007 when the study last took place. So women are entering entrepreneurship at a fast pace. So we'd love to get your opinion, Susan, on what do you think some of the high points have been in regards to trends related to women in business?
I think, Christy, some of the high points for the statistics and the interest that we're seeing in entrepreneurship for women is the fact that we're seeing more and more women migrate into what we would consider non-traditional industries for women. So we're seeing more women in manufacturing and technology, construction even. I was doing some work on my home here in Florida, and I found a woman who owns a general contracting company. And of course, I'm going to do business with her. But I said, wow, I bet you've seen a lot. She's been in business for a long time and, dealing in such a male-dominated industry. But the reason I really like to see this happening for women business owners is one of the excuses that we've had for many years of why women don't really have higher revenues in their businesses, and so few of them cross over the $1 million threshold, is a lot has to do with the fact that we go into service industries, personal service industries. So there's not a lot of capital investment. There's not a lot of collateral involved and that sort of thing. And now that we see these women going these non-traditional industries, I mean, we're seeing those revenues climb and they're out there competing with the big boys. And I love to see that. And we're showing that we can be just as competitive as our male counterparts.
Yeah, I've definitely seen over the years a growth in women going into those non-traditional fields. And what's unique is just the unique way they run their business and how they grow their business. I wanted to ask you, you've been around entrepreneurship and small business for so many years. What do you think are some areas of growth or improvement that you think women in business need to see, or new directions or trends that they need to be aware of?
I still think that we have a gap when it comes to raising venture capital for women in business. To a certain degree, raising capital, period, but certainly the venture capital field. And it's the venture capital that you need to really accelerate growth, to get to that bigger level with your businesses. So if you have big dreams, then you're going to need big capital investments, and that's what you need. And unfortunately, there is still a bias against women who are raising venture capital. One of the problems is there aren't a lot of women VCs out there. And so whether or not it's intentional or not, whether or not the VCs even realize it exists, there's that subconscious, subliminal bias against women who are running companies. It's been a number of years ago, but there was a great research study by one of the universities, and they took basically the exact same business plans, the exact same financials, the exact same requests for venture capital investment and uses for those funds. And the only difference was they changed the name from Sally to Sam or something, like that of the CEO. And it was interesting because the majority of the VCs said, yes, they would invest in the man's company. But unfortunately, a very few percentage said they would invest in Sally's company because they just didn't think it was strong enough. So, I think that you see those things, those biases come out occasionally. I'm also going to flip this here a little bit, Christy, because it also falls on our back as women business owners. We have to get comfortable with understanding various financial vehicles that are available to us. How do you go out and talk about finances? How do you go out and pitch a VC? I actually have done that. So I've worked with women who'll come to me and say, oh, I want to raise investor capital, and here's what I'm going to do. And they show me their PowerPoint presentation, and it's all about, oh, I started this business because I love it, and oh, it smells so good, and I feel touchy-feely, and blah, 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 blah. And they're going through all this stuff before they ever get to what's the pain point in the marketplace and why are you solution? How much money do you want and how are you going to use it? Those are the keys. And women have got to get comfortable with putting it out there like that.
I couldn't agree with you. As a small owner, one of the biggest challenges that we face has been trying to access capital. And I agree with you that, you have to speak the language. You have to speak the language of capital, specifically if you're going after investment money, because investors are looking for key things in terms of ROI or return on investment. So learning that language is a critical component for any woman looking to, whether you're going after a very small, loan to start a business or you're going after venture capital. Knowing how to speak the right language when it comes to financing is really important to be successful.
That's very true. I think that, and it still goes back, Christy, back in 2001, I wrote a book called The Girl's Guide to Power and Success. And it's funny because it really was sort of the precursor to Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. And not a lot has changed since I wrote that book that many years ago. But there is still, I think, a lot of sort of a sociological undercurrent that women still believe that if you talk about wanting to make money or, you're out there trying to make money, that it's not feminine. And I've always laughed, and you hear a lot of comedians make this joke that women will talk about every intimate detail of their lives, but they don't want to talk about money. So it's there's a little bit of truth to that. So I do think that we also have to recognize, just because you're ambitious and you want to go out there and make money, it doesn't make you the villain or the vixen. Actually, successful women business owners tend to give back a considerable amount to their community. They create family-friendly workplaces, and they do a lot of good. So they're not out there just to line their pockets with gold.
I'd love to get your opinion. One of the things that I've seen in terms of trends, and you mentioned this when you talked about non-traditional types of businesses where there's not a predominant number of women in them. I've noticed, there's been a huge push in entrepreneur education, and from my 2 cents, it'd be great to have a larger focus on girls and encouraging them from an early age to look at entrepreneurship as a career path, just as we are encouraging them to go into unique fields or fields that haven't been traditionally women focused, like STEM fields. What is your thoughts about some of the trends around, entrepreneurship? Seems to be, there's a new show every day about entrepreneurs going after, money or partner, Shark Tank,
Right.
The profit. So what are your thoughts about how we create that pipeline of women entrepreneurs by, focusing on young girls?
I think that's a great idea. And actually funny that you said that. I'm auditioning for a show on Tuesday. So, cross your fingers. I can't tell you what it is, but cross your fingers. But yes, I do think it's like anything else, children emulate what they see. So if you are giving young women and role models and examples and showing them, women who have built success on their own, have established wealth in their own names, and And I think that encourages them. I was lucky. My mother was an entrepreneur. She became an entrepreneur right after World War II and spent the rest of her life, running her own businesses. So I saw that, and that was not anything unusual to me. I think that a lot of young women don't get that insight. And, even if it's not your mother or your sister or your aunt or whatever doing it, if you get it from a young age and you're seeing it and you're around women who are doing it, it makes you a lot more comfortable with that process. The other thing, and this is true for young people, no matter whether you're male or female, I think that what we're seeing right now is technology is replacing a lot of jobs. And so I think we are entering an era where people are going to be more responsible for becoming their own boss, for taking care of themselves. This country was really founded on the spirit of entrepreneurship. And then, we entered the industrial age and the information age and so on and so forth. I kind of see it going full circle now, and we're going back more to an era of entrepreneurship. And quite frankly, I like that. I appreciate it.
Are there any, obviously, SB Council, it has a big policy focus working here in DC to try and create a climate for business owners where prospective entrepreneurs can start businesses with ease and current business owners can help grow their business with ease. Anything you see? I know there's a lot of debate going on right now with a lot of different policy items. You work with a lot of small businesses. What are you hearing, from business owners about the issues that are really impacting them, specifically women business owners?
I had coffee with a longtime friend of mine who's a successful entrepreneur and an author also. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what we need, Susan?" And I said, "What?" He said, "We need to get the government out of our businesses." And I thought that summed it up so well. I mean, you've got these entrepreneurial people who have this spark and this passion, and then suddenly that gets squashed when the government comes in. Well, you can't do it that way. Well, you have to do this and you have to do that. And suddenly, you might as well be working for somebody else because now you're working for the government. The only problem is you don't get it right with them. They're going to come and clean out your bank account, right? So I think that giving us the freedom, to really grow and build our businesses, there has to be regulation, clearly. I mean, we can't just run amok, but I think we have just gone crazy. We're in an era of hyper regulation, and it's been strangling small businesses. And I also will say this much. I do talk to a lot of small businesses, and they complain and complain and complain. And then I look at them and say, well, what are you doing about it? If you want something changed, you've got to be involved and help make that change. And that's why membership in an organization like the SBE Council is so critical, because it gives you a platform to let your voice be heard. You've got somebody there who's going to be advocating for the issues that are affecting your business, even if you can't leave your storefront on Main Street in Fredericktown, Missouri, and drive to Washington, D.C. to do it. You've got somebody there who's doing it for you.
I couldn't agree with you more. As a business owner, it's, I always feel like I don't have a right to complain if I'm not taking action, or at least sharing my story or sharing with my policymakers the issues that are facing me or impacting my business. So it's critically important for business owners to engage and, at minimum, just share their story about what regulations or what factors are impacting their ability to start and grow their business.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about, give some business owners a little tips. You're such an expert on small business. You work with so many business owners for so many years. We'd love to get your 2 cents. I know you have a new book coming out. It's called The 1% Edge, The Key in Remaining Relevant in Today's Changing Market. In it, you highlight a process you've developed to help businesses build on innovation or have innovation be a core part of their business DNA. Can you share any more about your book or any sneak peek into any tips you share?
Sure. So, Christy, there's a lot that's written regularly, and a lot of good books out there on how to build success. There's very little that's been written on how do you sustain that success. So all you have to do is think about some major brands that you've known just over even the last 10 years that have disappeared from the landscape. And what happens is, as business leaders or business owners, we just get so busy in the day-to-day operations of our businesses. And especially if things are going good, it's like, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Well, things are changing so rapidly. And the bottom line today is, if your business is successful, if you're doing well, you could still get what I call Uberized. Something's going to come and blindside you and boom, you're going to be irrelevant. So this process is really helping businesses of all sizes, although most corporations probably aren't going to listen to little old me, but it's to build this process into their business operations that helps them build innovation into their DNA. So, and it doesn't just look at the delivery of a product or service. It's going to look at your people. It's going to look at your marketing. It's going to look at your process and your technology, because you can't just, you could have the coolest, neatest, most innovative new product on the market, but if you don't have the right people or the technology or the processes or even attracting the right customers with your marketing, you're not going to get it out there. It's not going to be successful. So those incremental enhancements have got to come with every aspect of your business. And it's, so the process starts at the beginning. You work down, you measure, you review, and then you either stay the course or adjust it, and then you start all over again. So it's like the never ending story, but you've got to constantly be, churning that through.
I couldn't agree more. Just the process of having to constantly be evaluating and evaluating your business and your market, because there's so many changes coming down the pike, whether it be technology, whether it be, your competitors, and keeping an eye on what they're doing. So building that into your process of evaluating what you're doing and how you're doing things is really important to be able to stay ahead of the curve as best you can. For women in business in particular, you had mentioned about growth, and that, a lot of women businesses are on the smaller side, primarily because they're in the service sector. Any recommendations for growth strategies for women in business, or things they should look at?
So I think that every business needs to try to achieve that level where they're becoming scalable. And by that, I mean that you have to have a product or service that is teachable, that can be repeated, and can be consistently delivered. So I think the rut that a lot of us fall into is we think that if we're not doing it, if we're not right there involved with it, it's just not going to be good enough. But scalable businesses are the ones that the owner, the founder, the entrepreneur can almost step away, and the business is going to continue to tick and run successfully. And that's when you start to see the scale. And I think that I know myself, even personally, I think women are not good delegators. We are taught like we're superwoman, right? We can do it all, and we're going to get it done. And by golly, we're not going to ask for help. And it's not necessarily that we're asking for help. We are delegating, picking the right people, teaching them so that they can take what we do and grow it. Take that vision and grow it. And so I talk to almost every single business out there can be scaled like that. Obviously, if you're a very specialized artist and, that really is all about you, then no, probably not so much. But, you take a photographer, let's use this example. Great photographer out there shooting pictures, doing weddings. Everybody wants John Doe, right? Or Sally Smith. And so you're caught up, and there are only so many hours in the day you can work. But if you come down with a process that you can teach somebody else to do it how you do it, it can be repeated time and time again. And then your customers are going to get that same consistency that they would get from you. All of a sudden now you're able to scale that business, and you're going to have a real business, not just a job.
Oh, that's a good point. I think, sometimes as a business owner, you're in the thick of it. So it's hard to see the forest for the trees. So, so to take a step back to start thinking about longer term and scalability, I think is really important to be able to see, especially if you want to see your business grow.
And, in the book, the first step of the process, which is not really that earth shattering, but I do say, you've got to set aside think time. You've got to get away, carve it out. And then you've got to start asking these really tough questions. The questions that you don't know the answers to, and maybe you don't even want to hear the answers. But there can't be any sacred cows, no egos. It's got to be that really drill down, I'm going to just take my clothes off and look in the mirror kind of a thing here. And that's how you start to begin to see, what am I missing? If I weren't doing business this way today, would I do it this way? Or if yes or no, why or why not? And what are the other opportunities that you see on the horizon? Or what are the risks? Or what are the competitive things that you might see slipping in the cracks that you know, a lot of people want a discount initially because you think, oh, it's never going to amount to anything. And the next thing you know, you're Uberized, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So as we are wrapping up here, again, just want to mention, when is your book going to be out so everyone out there can know?
Actually, we were shooting for October, but I was talking to my publisher. We're actually pushing it to January. So it's going to be a first of the year book. Great way to start off the book or to start off the year and get your business really growing in 2018. Gosh, 2018, can you imagine?
I know, years already going by so fast.
Right, exactly.
So as we close, we'd love to get your, I guess, words of wisdom. I know that, you run many businesses, work with many business owners. For women in business out there, as we celebrate Women's History Month and all entrepreneurs, what is, I guess, one tidbit of wisdom you'd like to leave with people?
I think, I've been doing this for a long time and I've got a lot of years under my belt. So I know for many, many years, I would be so stressed out and so burned out. And I'd be worried about, what the economy was doing and what my customers thought of me and what's this and what's going to happen. I was constantly worried. And as I've stepped back now is I realize there's so many things that I can't control, no matter how much I worry about it, no matter how much I stew and fret about it. So I learned to focus on the things that I can control. And I think the best advice I could give to anyone is to focus on those things and be impeccable at what you can control. The rest of it, yeah, it's out there. You want to be aware of it, but be impeccable on that 50% of your life that you can control.
Great words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Susan. Susan, if you don't mind sharing your website with everyone who wants to learn more about you, and I know you have a lot of books out there.
And we have a lot of content on my website too. So I share it also with you guys, but we do a fresh blog every day. We do a newsletter. If you sign up, you'll get my marketing tips ebook. And it's just susansolovic.com, and Solovic is spelled like Solovic, Solovic. So it's susansolovic.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And everybody out there, all the small business owners watching us, we host Small Business Insider Live. SBA Council hosts it every week, every Thursday at 1:30. We're speaking to great guests like Susan and talking about the latest policy coming out of Capitol Hill that's going to impact you and your business. Please go ahead and visit sbecouncil.org and sign up for our e-news to stay up to date. Also follow us on Twitter at SB Council or Facebook so you can find out who our next special guest will be on Small Business Insider Live. Thanks again, Susan, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you, Christy.
Thanks.